Hi VC, you're never going to guess what I paid for this copy of Dr. Z's Three Parts to My Soul. It's the die cut sleeve, it's got the opening flaps. Guess how much? 20 quid. 20 quid, yeah. It's on the Akarma label, look, yeah. What? Hi VC, I'm Midge, a guy in the hat who likes to talk about records. And today's video was inspired by two things. The first one was, obviously I'm new to this YouTube game. I'm usually more of a watcher than a videoer. And I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, basically along the lines of, if you don't get 500 views for each video you post, then you're letting your friends and your family down, and you should seriously reevaluate your life. And I thought I'd do a cheeky video with the clickbait title just as an experiment, just to see if it made any difference, but we'll see. So apologies for that. The other thing was, I saw a video the other day by one of the other members of the vinyl community who dropped a 4-figure sum on Dr. Z's Vertigo album. And it made me think a lot about collectors and how we're all different, which is a good thing, and then what we're prepared to spend, and various issues like that. And it made me think about how I collect records. And very early on, when I was a teenager, when I started collecting, I was really into the Vertigo label. Really fascinated by all the strange covers and the artwork and the sort of the way record collector magazines and things like that used to build up the titles about strange and mysterious music and things like that. And it was really intriguing to me as a teenager. But obviously, I couldn't afford the prices. So I think very early on as a collector, I made a decision not to worry about it, and to rely on reissues instead. And I'm a collector who, I don't have a problem with the reissues at all. I couldn't really give a monkeys about original pressings or label variations and things like that. It's just not who I am as a collector. I'm just not interested in it, to be honest with you. So I know there's a lot of snobbery about first pressings and labels and things like that, but as a teenager, it sort of excludes you from a club, if you like. You're never going to be able to pay those sums of money for top-end collectibles on these sort of labels, but you want to hear the music. So I'm no problem with reissues at all. So when I first started collecting Vertigo albums, they weren't on Vertigo, they were just the small label reissues, who did a good job, to be honest with you, and I'm quite happy with that, and I've still got them to this day. And to be honest with you, it goes back to being collectors again. I mean, I'm not knocking anyone here, there's no static at all. It's just how different we all are as collectors. Personally, full disclosure, I've never spent more than £50 on an individual record, because I just can't do it. In terms of, it just goes through me. I know we all have grails and things that we really would spend a lot of money on, but I've never gone above that. Obviously, I've spent more than that buying multiple records, but I've never spent more than that on a single record, because I just can't do it. It goes through me. I'd just rather, if I spent £1,000 on a record, I'd be thinking, well, I could have got 10, 20 other albums for that, and I can't do it. I just can't justify it to myself. So I've never been a label collector. It's more about the music for me, and that's fine. Everyone's, I'm not knocking anyone. There's no beef here. So today's video is, I just wanted to show you a few albums that I've got on Vertigo that are not on Vertigo. So it's basically a how I learned to stop worrying and collect reissues type of video. But firstly, let's start off with the album in question. So Dr. Z, Three Parts to My Soul. It's one of the most sought after albums on Vertigo. It commands extremely high prices. It's extremely rare. It's extremely hard to get hold of, and it's absolute rubbish, to be honest with you. No, that's a bit unfair. It's not absolute rubbish, but it's one of those records that you can't help but think that over time stories have come out about it. Dealers have bigged it up when they've had copies. I mean, there were stories going around that this originally only sold 70 copies, and when you listen to it, you can understand why. But I've never believed that story. I think it's just a hype story. Also, you've got the fact that Keith Keys, who was the man behind this album, subsequently vanished after making this album and was never heard of again. which adds to the mystique. No one's ever been able to track him down or talk to him about the album. Obviously, it wasn't a great seller, but for these albums are highly sought after because they're rare. They didn't really sell anything, and sometimes it's because they're rubbish. Other times it's because they're hidden gems and it wasn't the right time for them. People just pick up on them. But sometimes the reason why albums didn't sell is quite frankly because they're not very good. And this falls into that category for me. I remember when I first bought this album years and years and years ago. I was, I'd heard all the stories about it, and when they said they were reissuing it, I couldn't wait to get my hands on a copy. And I can't tell you how gutted I was when I first heard this. And I felt at the time that 20 quid I'd wasted my money. So God knows how much, how much crying you do when you pick up a copy for £1,000 and you realise it's not very good. But again, each to their own. The thing about this album is it's got everything that makes it a great Vertigo album. It's got a concept behind it. It's got great artwork to it by Barney Bubbles, who did the Hawkwind sleeve, In Search of Space. And it's got a die cut sleeve. It's very hard to find with your flaps still working, which it's nothing worse than having your flaps torn off, is there, in real life and in record collecting. And there's a mystique about it, and it's quite heavy in terms of the subject matter. It's a concept album about a man and the fact he's searching for his soul. The soul is divided into three: spiritus, manes, et umbra. But the album itself, it sounds like a demo album to me. I mean, that's probably because it was recorded on the cheap. There's three people involved. There's Keith Keys, who is a very, very competent keyboard player. There's lots of harpsichord, piano, brilliantly played. There's Bob Watkins is a drummer on this, and the drumming on this album is fantastic, to be fair. And Rob Watson, who plays bass on it. So it's a three-piece. It's like a concept album. It was a studio type concept album. It was never toured. They weren't really a band, and no further album was made after this one. But the problem with it for me is it's sort of like it's trying to sound like a really heavy and dark album, and Keith Keys' vocals on it are really strange. It's sort of like trying to sound like he's trying to sound demonic, I think, all the way through it, but it doesn't quite capture what he's trying to go for. It's not convincing. It reminds me of, like, if I could compare it to something, imagine John Inman fronting a Swedish death metal band, and that's what it's like for me. He can't pull it off. It's not convincing. I mean, John Inman's never gonna convince you to burn down churches or kill priests, is it? And this is a similar sort of thing. Keith Keys with his demonic vocals, it just sounds a bit weedy and a bit unconvincing. But like I say, musically, it's all right. It's decent. There's some decent tracks on it. Evil Woman's Manly Child is decent. Spiritus Manes as Umbra has got a great drum solo that runs for it. And I always think of this album as if it was played live, normally you'd get to the toilet during the drum solo, where in this case, you're probably better coming out for the drum solo and staying in the toilet for the rest of it. But having said that, there's a track on it called In a Token of Despair, which is superb. It's the best track on the album, and that's really good. This obviously is the Akarma reissue, which I'll get onto in a minute. And it has 2 extra tracks on it he made a single, Keith Keys. I don't think it was for Vertigo, and it's Lady Ladybird, and the B-side was People in the Street. Now, he sings completely different on these 2 tracks, and he can actually sing. He's got a really good, decent singing voice. So, he obviously affected these vocals for this album. But again, it's going back to collecting as well. I mean, I don't think this album's very good. If it was on any other label, would it still be held in high regard? Would collectors be falling over themselves to get it? No, not really. It's because it's the Vertigo label and everybody's clamouring for original Vertigo copies. But on any other label, it just wouldn't. I mean, for example, this is Bruce Forsyth's Both Sides of Bruce from the 70s. Now, Bruce Forsyth is a pretty decent piano player, as you hear on this album. Now, if Bruce was to make a concept album and change his piano playing to keyboard playing, and this was issued on Vertigo, would this be worth more than a couple of quid in a charity shop? Probably not, to be honest. But you get my point, don't you? The badly made point that it is that it's because it's on a very collectible label. So that's my view of Dr.Z's. But like I say, the Akarma label is a Spanish label. It's often frowned upon in terms of that it probably doesn't. They're not officially licensed. There's been talk of the fact that a lot of their reproductions may be vinyl drops or from a digital source. Again, it's not something that I worry too much about. I just like the fact that you got a copy of an original, really rare album, and I think they did a really good job of packaging these. They're on really thick, heavy card sleeves. I don't know if you can see, but it's sort of like the embossed sort of effect on it. And they did loads of good reissues of Vertigo albums and other incredibly rare albums during the early 2000s. I'm not sure if they're still operating now, but they were a godsend to collectors like me because they released albums that you'd never see, that you'd never be able to afford in affordable formats. Obviously, you know, they didn't pay royalties, I don't think, and I think they're a bit shady, to be honest, but you can read up online about the label. But for people like me, fantastic. For example, Gracious, they did a reissue of the Gracious album again. Lovely thick heavy card sleeve with the embossing on it, the gatefold. Hotcha. Great album, lots of keyboards. Sound a bit like the Moody Blues to me, which is no bad thing in my opinion. So great they did Gracious. I mean, I've just pulled out a few just to show you of the ones I've got in my collection. Again, Gravy Train. This is another Akarma one. Thick, heavy card sleeve. I mean, look at that sleeve. I mean, is this a Keith McMillan sleeve? No, it's a Hypnosis sleeve. Even better, but it's just so evocative, aren't they? They're just great, mysterious looking type sleeves, and it just makes you want to hear the music. Again, this is a great album, this one, Gravy Train. Lots of flute, lots of heavy rock vocals. That's a great album. What else we got here? We've got Fairfield Parlour, From Home to Home, the band Kaleidoscope evolved into to try and to make people more aware of the music. The first two albums are psychedelic classics, became a bit more progressive on this one, but though not a lot. Still loads of melodies, still loads of great songs. This is a repressing on Psy One Records. They reproduced the Vertigo label for that one. And they're just great. I think it's a Japanese pressing, this one. Yeah. That was another good label that did loads of great Vertigo reissues. But again, reproduced the gatefold sleeve. Superb album again, but totally unaffordable for me. So another great reissue there. Next, you have got a Keith McMillan sleeve, possibly one of my all-time favourite album sleeves and one of the best album sleeves, Nirvana's Local Anesthetic. Now, if you're thinking this is that Nirvana, it isn't that Nirvana, it's the other Nirvana. And if you're thinking of the other Nirvana, it is that one, it's not the other one. So I can't make it any clearer than that. So again, superb sleeve. One of the spookiest and best sleeves from the Vertigo. And also probably one of the most, misused sleeves, because it really deserved to be on a better album than this. It could have been a great Black Sabbath album cover. One of my all-time favourite albums, was so spooky, just fantastic. What else have I got? I've not pulled all my Vertigos out, Vertigo copies, but I've pulled most of them out. And it's just to show you that you can do this on the cheap. It can be a bit a bit daunting for a collector. You think, I want to hear these albums, but I don't want to pay those prices. Well, Akarma especially did a good job. You've got Tudor Lodge here, and they reproduced the huge fold-out sleeve. I mean, look at the artwork on that. It's just absolutely stunning artwork. again, that's a great folky album, very twee, but very cool. That's another Akarma reissue. Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, this is a great one. This is Ramesses Space Hymns. Look at that cover, amazing cover. And this is another great reissue. This is on Mexican Summer, and it reproduces, I'll never be able to get it on the screen, but it reproduces the huge fold out sleeve. Yeah, I'm still here. The huge fold out sleeve with Ramesses and Selket on it. And obviously we all know the story about this album. Ramesses was a central heating salesman from my town of Sheffield, and then he had a vision one day that he was the reincarnation of Ramesses, a pharaoh god. So I think that's probably one of the best promotions ever that's come from Sheffield. One day you're selling central heating, next day you're the son of a pharaoh. Can't be bad. I've never had the same career progression myself, but you know, if it can happen in Sheffield, it could happen again. Again, another great album. Another great reissue of a great album. Great repackaging, faithful to the original, and cheap. So again, you know, you can't go wrong in my eyes. I know I might be on my own in that. And this one is one of my favourite albums on the Vertigo label, and it's Pato's Hold Your Fire. Again, Akarma, thick sleeve, and they've faithfully recreated the original flap sleeve, which is very hard to find in good nick. And this album is superb, absolutely superb. It's got some of the members who were later, John Holzintip, the drummer, who went on to become a member of the Rutles. And if you like the faces, and you like, it's sort of like the face, it's got the swagger and the cheek and the irreverence of the faces, but they've got like a progressive element to them. And the guitarist, Ollie Halsall, is absolutely amazing guitarist. And he plays in loads of different styles. He plays in like a lot of it's a great sort of like jazz riffing and stuff on here as well. It's an absolutely incredible album, and I really recommend you seek it out. It's just, you know, it's a great rock and roll album from a really underrated band. So again, that's another Akarma reissue. So I know what you're thinking now. Have you actually got any Vertigo swirls? And yes, I have actually, yeah. So I'll show you some of them. I've got the compilation, the Vertigo Annual from 1970. I think that was the woman that was on the cover of the Affinity album. I'm not sure. Great compilation, some of the great tracks from the Vertigo roster. And you've got superb tracks like you've got Jimmy Campbell's Half Baked, you've got Fairfield Parlour's In My Box, Affinity's Three Sisters, Gracious Introduction, Cressida to Play Your Little Game. Superb compilation. Another one I've got, Magna Carta Seasons, another great album. I know a lot, it's very twee, I'll be honest, but it's a superb concept album about the passing of the seasons, and it's a side-long sort of suite of songs about the passing of the seasons, and I love it. I think it's superb. I think, again, that's another underrated Vertigo album. Great folk album. It's got elements of Simon and Garfunkel, I think, in there as well. But yeah, I love this album. You know, you've got the original price code thing on it. So yeah, I have got Vertigos, yeah. This is one of the first Vertigos I got as a teenager. Black Sabbath Volume 4. I remember paying 30 quid for this, which I thought was a lot of money at the time. But yeah. And it's got the booklet in it. And something I wouldn't have tolerated at the time, but, you know, young collector back then, was that it's not got the Vertigo swirl sleeve. It's just, you know, it's been replaced. That's a bit cheeky, isn't it? But yeah, I was a big enough Black Sabbath fan to buy an original. speaking of Black Sabbath and being a young collector, I used to go to a market stall in Sheffield years ago, and they used to have some great little bits and bobs. And this is before the vinyl revival took off again, so you could get some great 70s stuff really cheap. And one day I was looking through the racks, and I couldn't believe it. Black Sabbath's Paranoid on Vertigo for a really cheap price. But being the naive young collector I was, it's absolutely knackered. So, you know, there's a reason why things are cheap. You don't stumble across things. People, even back then, were clued up about it. It's scratched, it's marked, it's got constant crackle all the way through it. But I'm still glad I bought it because, you know, it was a thrill finding one back then. But I was really naive back then, and I thought, I'll take this home and clean it up and it'd be worth a fortune. And I tried cleaning it up and it didn't make any difference whatsoever. But I've always kept it. But yeah, being a young collector. And I've also got jazz rock, great band, Nucleus. We'll talk about this later. It's got the die cut, and I think I paid about £30 for this back in the day. So I've never gone over that threshold. So it can be done, but not very often. Obviously Ian Carr's Nucleus jazz rock fusion, just superb. And that's just reminded me, Be With Records are a great reissue label. I've reissued all the Nucleus albums from Vertigo, and you can still get hold of them at a decent price. So well worth checking out the Be With Records website. So that's about it. It's not having a pop at anyone, it's just the differences in people's collecting. I mean, my thing has always been, I'm quite happy to get reissues. My caveat is, as long as the package in the same way as the originals were. So if I get a reissue and it's in a single sleeve and it was originally issued in a gatefold, I'm not going to be happy with that, and I'm going to look for another reissue or an original. So I do have times when I won't settle for it. You know, if the original came with a poster or a die cut sleeve and it was stopped on subsequent pressings, I will look for the original pressing. That is my strange quirk. I want them, even the reissues, to be packaged like they were originally. So, you know, we're all different, aren't we? And we're all paid different amounts, and that's what's great about collecting, because everyone's got different grails and everyone's got different things to look out for and strange quirks and things like that. I mean, another one is my albums aren't in alphabetical order. I've always refused to put them in alphabetical order because to me that's too much like having a library, and I don't like that. So it's great, you know, things are scattered all over the place, and it's only the downside is when I actually want to play something and I spend half an hour looking for one album, and it's just really frustrating. And so, you know, but we're all different, we're all strange, but that's what's great about record collecting and vinyl collectors. So this has been a video basically about, you know, don't worry about high prices records. You can pick them up fairly cheap, and you can often find an odd bargain here and there. So yeah, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.